And I can move on to my chamfering operations, which we're going to actually switch over to be a radius operation. So we're going to go in and we're going to create a radius tool for this. I'm going to come in, I'm going to define a new tool, new cutter. With the cutter type, I'm going to change this down from flat end mill to radius mill. And we're going to use this 2mm radius. So it's already pulled up our 2mm radius cutter with the appropriate needs as an 8mm diameter on the shaft. So we're going to go ahead and keep this as defined, but you definitely want to model this correctly to the cutter that you're going to be purchasing out of the correct catalog. And I'm going to select this cutter for this operation. Once I go to my geometry page, the first thing I'm going to do is X out all of geometry because I'm no longer going to use it. And with radius machining, some CAM softwares make it a little bit difficult to actually just come in and select what needs to be cut. HSM defines that tool from the tool point, so it's very simple to come in and select the correct geometry that we're going to actually be putting the radius on. We're going to keep selected contours, make sure it's got a 0 bottom offset adjustment, and hit OK. And we have our radius. Now, we don't have an optimal start-stop point. What I am going to do is go into that contour, come into my linking, and select a couple of entry positions. Now I'm going to do that based off of where I want the cutter to start. And I actually want the cutter to start right here for that first one, and here for the second one. So it tears up and moves over to this point. So it actually stuck these 2 points in here for my start points. I'm going to select OK. Finally, we're going to go ahead and chamfer the top of this part just to clean up any burrs along the edges. Now this is already a chamfer geometry for the correct chamfer cutter. So what I'm going to do is just select the geometry I want to chamfer, inside and outside, make sure the comps are going in the right direction. Hit OK, and just like that, I've got my chamfers. So now that that operation's complete, I can simulate it. And let's go ahead and go into the simulation a little bit and take a look at what we see here. Now you see you've got lots of red, and I like calling it blood. There's lots of blood in here on my simulation. So what I have is a collision with what it thinks is existing stock. And that's because it doesn't recognize in this simulation session that there's not stock there. So what I can do to take care of that is one of two things. I can simulate both operations at the same time. There's OP1 once again. We're just machine the whole thing. And then it's going to start machining OP2. Okay, so all of that went away because now it's using the proper cutters. It's doing what it needs to do, with the exception of the fact that I forgot a toolpath. Now, the two things here that I see. I got rid of all the problems by adding these operations together, but I've left material on. Now, in order to see this even better, the option that I can use down at the bottom left corner here is Show Part Comparison. So I'm going to left click on that. So I see here that this blue represents that I've left too much material here, so I need to have a nice finish come around here and a finish pocket routine come around here. And then I need to adjust this chamfer, and then this part will be complete. So let's close this out. First and foremost, let's go ahead and take a look at our pocketing routine. So this is what's leaving the material over on the top. So let's go ahead and right click on this, and we're going to do a create derived operation, 2D milling, and we're going to do a standard 2D pocket. And the only thing we're going to change is the geometry left over, because what we want to do is we're contouring here. So what we want to do is just control, left click that, geometry. We're going to keep this top geometry. This is what we want to actually finish machine for that top. So let's go into our passes tab and change. The only thing we're changing the passes tab is going to be this axial stock to leave. That's on the floor. I'm going to change that to 0. I want to leave the wall stock because I'm actually going to add a contour toolpath around that. Let's hit OK. And we have our finish pocket. But see, this is extending. It's making some air cuts. Alright, so I recognize that. Let's go in here, come into where our stock is set. I do want it to enter and exit externally. So to force that, I'm going to reselect that, and I'll select this outside edge instead. There, that shortened the toolpath down. We have no more air cutting moves. We're staying away from this feature, so now I'm good with that toolpath. I like the results. What I can do now is just simply drag and drop this into the correct place. So it's going to rough, and then it's going to finish. Now for our contour around this boss, we are going to want to use a sharp end mill. So what I can do is I can actually just start a new contour, or I can just duplicate the contour that I have and just change the tool. So let's drag this down, double click on that, change the tool. We're going to add a 1/2 inch cutter in here just to start machining the needed, or rather we'll go 12 millimeter. I'm going to leave everything else default. We'll select that cutter, change the geometry to just outside this boss. We'll turn off stock because we no longer have stock to worry about to run into. Change our heights to selected contours and select OK. Now I may not like where this is starting, so once again what I can do is I can move this over by using the entry position and selecting a different part position for it to start at. That's a little more direct. I am going in with several passes here. I may only want to change this to one pass. So let's once again go into that toolpath and edit it. And that's set by the roughing strategy. I can just click that tick box off, and it's as fast as that.